This transit will test you, up-level you, inspire you, twist you, contort you, expand you in brand new ways that you did not even know were possible. But what I will tell you is by the other side of it, you will have a newfound clarity over the person that you are and the life that you have built. Hi, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my Cosmic Corner of the Internet, where we discuss all things astrology, and today, all things Saturn return in Pisces and you. Saturn and Pisces generation, it's your guys' turn, and it is so deeply important to understand what this pivotal time of your life is for. And yes, contrary to popular belief, okay, it does not mean that everything in your life is falling apart. In fact, it can be a tremendous time of up-leveling so long as you respect and you work with Saturn. You can liken Saturn return like it's a test, right? And the thing about Saturn is that Saturn is not the cool teacher. It doesn't care about your opinion of it. It lays down the law. If you do not pass, it will make that very, very aware to you. It's the sort of teacher that marks up your test in red ink and you're like, do you need to be this cruel? But seriously, the reason Saturn tests you so much is because Saturn essentially matures us. It teaches us discipline. It moves us into the next era of our life. And it does not round your grade. Your entire life from this point is essentially being tested and crystallized. So if you think about the first 28 or 29 years of your life, if this is your second Saturn return, you know, the period of time since your last Saturn return, the last time Saturn was in Pisces, that's all kind of like, that's all material that might come up during the Saturn return. Because essentially what a Saturn return is we are essentially saying that Saturn has finally returned to the same portion of the sky that it was located in when you were born. And the transit is essentially Saturn conjunct Saturn. And what it does, it essentially kind of tests us on if we've been doing our Saturn work. Have you been exerting discipline to make your dreams reality? That's a big one for my Saturn Pisces folks. Have you been living out your spiritual beliefs and your compassion? Have you been thinking long term with your decision making? This transit is deeply clarifying because it will make you deeply aware of the person that you are and the direction that your life is going. Can that be scary? Does it ask us to approach things from a more somber, serious perspective? Absolutely. But will you exit this point really feeling grounded in the person that you are and the life that you are living? Absolutely. So we're going to dive into some overall Saturn return bits of wisdom and then break it down house by house. And please listen to the overall forecast before diving into house by house because it'll have a lot more nuance. I just want you to know the house that your Saturn is in does have some importance in terms of the life arenas that you are particularly being tested on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our Saturn return bits of wisdom to honor during this pivotal time of your life. So firstly, what you need to know, Saturn return is a rite of passage. It is essentially our crossing of the threshold into adulthood. And what's super important for you to know before you proceed with this video is that when I share with you this wisdom, this is all wisdom that has been taught to me by my mentors, all wisdom that has been cataloged by other people's lived experiences, but you do need to know I have not lived through this experience. I've always been forthright about my age. It's right there behind me in everything that I teach. I am currently going through my Saturn return right alongside you. So we're in this together. So from that vantage point, truly, I cannot say exactly how it feels like. I know what it's like. I know what to be mindful of as I've studied it extensively, but I have not lived through it myself. And that might be controversial. I will say there is a whole branch of astrology that does believe that astrologers have no place in astrology until after their Saturn return. That was never something that personally resonated with me, nor the mentor that I studied under. I feel very confident in my craft, and I don't believe that you need to personally live through an experience in order to teach about it. There are certain transits that only certain people will experience during their time on Earth. I will never experience Pluto going through my ascendant, conjoining my ascendant. I simply won't. I don't have enough years here. Well, only a handful of us will really feel Pluto conjoining an ascendant. Does that mean I can never talk about that particular transit? I personally don't believe so, because it's so deeply cataloged, because it's so deeply researched, because I am so committed to my practice and talking to other people's lived experiences. So I just want to make that disclaimer. I totally understand and respect if you decide to go listen to a video of somebody who has gone through 1 or 2 Saturn returns. No pressure. I'm just going to share and relay to you what it is that I have learned, not through lived experience, but through the study, research, and anecdotes from those within my orbit or that I have studied under or read from. Okay, so first things first. So when it comes to what I mean by rite of passage, and the reason why it is so controversial is because it's said that you don't totally know who it is that you are until you go through your Saturn return. And when it comes to Saturn return, it's basically a time in which you decide and crystallize the version of yourself that you are and the direction of your life, of where it is going. So the biggest thing when it comes to Saturn return is that it is a time for wisdom, and it can be deeply humbling, right? And so when it comes to Saturn return, going into this time, not through fear, but through this lens of respect, of understanding, Saturn returns an interesting blend in that it makes us realize how old we are. Like, it is the planet of time conjoining the planet of time within our birth chart. So it does make us deeply aware of time, whether it's like, wow, my back is starting to hurt and that never happened before, or wow, the people who raised me are starting to get older. Time gets real, but it also makes it clear around how young we are. It makes it clear how little we know. So it's this interesting grappling with time around understanding, wow, I'm not as young as I was, and there's still so much for me to learn. There's still so many challenges ahead. So the biggest thing that I would say is that it is a rite of passage, and understand that this time will challenge you in brand new ways, right? It will teach you in brand new ways. Be teachable, right? Be open to the lessons of Saturn. Saturn can be harsh, okay? So you do not want to get on Saturn's bad side. Essentially, be open to the wisdom that can come through at this time. And why I want to open with this is A, to make it clear, I've not gone through my Saturn return, so I cannot speak from personal lived experience. Secondly, I want you to have mentors and people who are older within your network. Okay, Saturn return makes it clear that age is a great teacher. And when it comes to your Saturn return, it can be such a powerful time to be able to lean on mentors or friends or coaches or things of the nature who can share with you the wisdom that their age has afforded them that you may not have access to, right? Like, it's so funny. Whenever I would go to my mentor is much older than me, okay? And I'll be freaking out about one transit or the next. And he'd be like, you know, I've gone through this like a dozen times, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, there is something about age that puts things into perspective. And I think as you navigate Saturn return, having trusted advisors, friends, mentors, managers, people that you do, whose life you respect, whose wisdom that you respect, can be helpful during this time as you kind of move through, as well as make you realize it's not the end of the world. It might feel like the end of the world, but with time brings perspective, right? And being able to talk to somebody who's been through 2 Saturn returns suddenly makes your Saturn return seem a little bit more manageable, right? Like, everybody around us has gone through the same rite of passage. So understanding that while it'll make us clear, wow, I'm not as young as I was, it also makes it clear, wow, there's still lots that I need to learn in this time. So be open, be teachable, both from lessons from Saturn as well as lessons from your elders. So listen up. You guys are being called upon during this time, okay? With Saturn in Pisces, you guys are destined. It's in your birth chart, and of course, it'll take different flavors based on where exactly it's located within your chart. But there is part of your destiny that involves either showing up as a creative, as a visionary of some sort, or as some sort of spiritual leader, okay? And again, that might take different shapes and forms. It might be more pronounced in your birth chart rather than others, but there is something around these Piscean themes, which is around muse, inspiration, higher level compassion for other humans, spirituality. There is a call to take these boundaryless mystery forms and be able to etch them into something tangible, into something practical, right? So with Saturn in Pisces, you are being asked to, yes, work hard at these themes, right? To be somebody who is very compassionate, but also has boundaries. We'll get into that in a moment. To be somebody who is very inspired and a diligent, right, steward of taking those ideas, those dreams, those visions, and making them real. Being able to live out your spiritual beliefs, truly do the work in order to guide into a show for other people. And I say this because you guys are being asked during this time to really be diligent about it, okay? With Saturn in Pisces, those dreams aren't just going to knock at your back door and be like, hi, I'm here. Did you order Grammy at 3 p.m.? They're not going to arrive. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take discipline. And that's what this transit is all about. And your Saturn return can be deeply helpful so long as you are open to the discipline and the hard work that this essentially time of your life is asking you for. And so whether you related to the more creative, imaginative energy of Pisces, whether you related to the really heart-centered, loving, open vessel for humanity energy of Pisces, whether you related to the spirituality, like really feeling called to do something within that sector, with Saturn return in Pisces, it's not always going to feel like randomly I just woke up and this beautiful poem moved through me. Like sometimes you have to work that muscle around sitting down at your desk and showing up with that muscle around putting in the work. You won't always feel like meditating, right? But you have to put in that muscle around doing the work. You won't always feel like practicing your craft. You won't always feel like being a compassionate human, but it takes that muscle around showing up in and day out. And I will say this transit will reward you if you have been very disciplined, okay? It could be a time that past discipline and past hard work catches up. However, if you haven't been doing the work, it will make that very apparent. That dream is just going to stay a dream unless you show up to work the muscle, to work the craft. And the thing about being a Saturn in Pisces native is that there is something within these muse spirituality realms that you are being asked to sort of like form, and it's not always easy. Pisces is very skittery. It's up, it's down, it's mutable water, right? It's constantly changing, and it's like to be able to have this structure and this disciplined Saturn even amongst the changing kaleidoscope of emotions and inspiration and energy levels, to continually show up to make and etch your dreams into reality. And during Saturn return, it'll make you clear where it is that you are not doing the work. More on that in the house that it's transiting. But firstly, I just want to say it's a time to be very disciplined as it relates to chiseling and channeling muse, okay? Like I said, a lot of you guys are visionaries. A lot of you guys are spiritual leaders. A lot of you guys are artists. A lot of you guys are really here to take things that are genuinely going to help humanity and put them into essentially something substantial, something that people can hold on to. And it won't always be like, I am so excited, I am this vessel for humanity. It takes work. It takes you doing the work yourself so that you can weigh, show, and guide. I know that art hasn't always been created when you're just like grinning and writing. I know like your own spiritual journey involved dark night of the soul. Like it takes work, doing the unglamorous work, right? Like I talk more deeply about this in the Saturn Pisces video, but when it comes to Pisces, it can be very nebulous. It could be very glamorous. And Saturn is sort of taking the glamour out of the Pisces sector, being like, yeah, spirituality is not just meditating on a cliff and like, feeling your aura alive in. It takes doing the hard work of exerting compassion, taking the hard work around being forgiving, doing the hard work around sharpening yourself as a spiritual instrument. It takes work, it takes effort, right? Everything does. And with Saturn and Pisces, there can be certain sectors where it gets less glamorous. Like you have this dream and sometimes the dream gets real. Like in your dream, it's just sparkly and shimmery going on book tours, but in real life, it takes being rejected by all of these, publishers. It's taking a little bit of sparkle out of the dream, but that doesn't mean you should give up on the dream, okay? It just means to show up deeper in reality, right? I keep emphasizing this word reality, so let's get to the next point of Saturn return wisdom. Listen, you guys need to get real. A lot of you guys are being called to go sober right now, okay? I feel that's a collective theme, but particularly with you guys. You're being called to go sober. Even if you don't feel that you have a problem with anything that you partake in, it is a time to really ensure that you have discipline over these activities so that they don't overtake you, so that they don't consume you. Exert discipline. Just try it. Just try not drinking for 30 days. Just try not smoking for 60. View it as a game. Just see what in your life shifts when you don't have an altered state of mind. Strive for clarity at this time. And you might be saying, well, Haley, Comet, I already don't do these things. Anything that you use for escapism, this is a time to be as real as possible, okay? With Saturn in Pisces, we are not getting the same space to retreat into our own fantasy dreamland. We're being asked to interact with reality. So the more that you can strive for the most clear state of mind in order to take into account the arenas of where Saturn return is testing you now, as well as to be able to kind of shift into the adult version of yourself, the better. Look at your habits, okay? Particularly habits in which you avoid reality. You will not be afforded the same space during this time. And it's not to say that you can never drink again. It's not saying you can never smoke again. Whatever. I just want you to gain clarity over the role that these arenas play within your life. These altered states of consciousness play within your life. Strive for clarity, particularly if there are, maybe it's not even, what I was talking about. Maybe it's video games. Maybe it's just running away from your problems, creating chaos. This is a time to really strive for as much clarity and facing things head on, because I will say this is the time that karma is a little quicker, okay? So if you find you are, choosing to just drink 24/7, smoke 24/7, whatever, I'll figure it out tomorrow, I'll figure it out tomorrow. Saturn's knocking, okay? And it's going to test you. It's going to challenge you. There could be more consequences in these arenas. You can start to feel the consequences of, having a more partying lifestyle, right? Of being high all the time. Like those consequences can start to pepper in. Like I said, Saturn return makes us realize how old we are. Like maybe this flew when you were younger 20s, but now it's taking away from years of your life, right? Like Saturn return's interesting in that it makes us realize, wow, I'm so old. Like my body showing how old I am, like my mind showing how old I am, but also how crucial and how important time is, that it is a non-renewable asset, right? And if you are losing days of your life being hungover, if you are losing motivation to do anything because you're just high all the time, like with Saturn return Pisces, get clear on how much time and life these habits are taking for you. It's not saying you never can utilize them. I think some people can have a very healthy relationship with those sort of things. Some cannot. I'm very curious because I do think with Saturn and Pisces, more people, again, people who struggle with substance abuse are all over, but I just feel that with Saturn and Pisces, I do feel a lot of people from this particular generation, because Saturn's planet of karma and consequences, they need to have a tighter grip over their relationship with these substances than other generations. That's just how I feel, hands down, okay? So really look at them. Look at what the role that they're playing within your life. And while it is a time that we should reach out to the wisdom of those around us who can help guide us during this time, it's also a goodbye to our childhood. As you enter a Saturn return, you have now experienced Saturn in every single sign, okay? Because now it's returning to your natal sign, so you've experienced the transits of Saturn in every sector of the sky. So while there's more wisdom that you will learn, there's wisdom that you've taken under your belt. There's wisdom that you've accumulated. And once you know something, you can't unknow something. And this is a time in which we are being asked to grow up and say goodbye to childish habits and maybe old dreams that we're no longer taking with us. And every iteration that you've been prior builds upon itself to show up as the version of yourself that you are now. But with this Saturn return, it could be this energy of needing to let go of outgrown habits, let go of certain mindsets that may have carried you to this point but won't get you further. It could be a goodbye to immaturity, a goodbye to your younger self, who of course still lives within you, but essentially it is this shifting. And particularly I highlight releasing old dreams because Saturn is in Pisces, and Saturn is a reminder that our time is finite on this planet. We don't have time for it all. We don't have time to give to pipe dreams, right, any longer. And this can be a sobering time because it is a time of realizing, okay, I'm not so young anymore, right? I have a finite amount of time on this planet. People around me are getting older. I'm getting older. I don't have time to invest in all this energy. I might need to say goodbye to certain childhood dreams that I see now are not going to come into fruition in order to concentrate my energy towards bringing the visions and the art that I really do see within my future, bring that into vision. During our Saturn return, it is a goodbye of our younger self. It is a time in which we are being asked to grow up, which yes, can be emotional, but I want you to know you're taking this iteration of yourself with you, but leaving behind certain habits, certain immature tendencies, leaving that as you step into this new era within yourself. And it's so important that we really consider Saturn return not so much everything falling apart, but rather a level up, the right things falling together. You will often hear the lore that Saturn returns when your life falls apart, right? Your girlfriend leaves you and you lose your job and everything hits the fan, right? But not necessarily. I will tell you this. The shifts that take place during this time were getting in the way of your maturity, of you stepping into the version of yourself that you are meant to be. Saturn is the planet of time. It basically tests the different arenas of our life to see what is built to last and what is not. And it will crumble whatever is not built to last within your universe. So if your boyfriend does break up with you, if you do lose your job, like consider, was this built to last? Do we have the same morals and values? Are we going in the same direction? Are we building in the same direction? Because I'll tell you right now, Saturn return will not crumble anything that is on strong foundation, okay? If there are things that depart your life, it's because they were getting in the way of your own growth. And a lot of times these are bitter pills to swallow. And sometimes that wisdom comes later in time. It's hard to be, in the midst of this and be like, well, it's all for a reason. But truly, with Saturn return, it will expose what arenas of our life are not built to last, okay? And just striving to have this Saturnian wisdom-seeking mindset. That being said, if things are in alignment with our higher self, if it is something that is built to last, it is this profound level up. This is why I've had clients get married during Saturn returns. It's very common. Start businesses during Saturn returns, pivot into a career field that is more sustainable and better for their soul. It is a level up for what is built on a strong foundation and a crumbling for what is not. So understand that the affairs that occur during a Saturn return, it's not necessarily going to break you, okay? It'll just take away whatever is getting in the way of your higher self. So trust that Saturn is dispensing out wisdom, and sometimes it's not what we wanted, right? We're like, but this is what I wanted, but Saturn's a planet of time. So it's like, it cannot stand the test of time, this career, this relationship, or what have you. If it is, my love, it is a level up. And I want to say, if you've been doing your due diligence, okay, Saturn return can finally be that delayed gratification catching up around really starting to see the fruits of your labor. If you haven't been doing your due diligence, that is another story. That brings me to, you reap what you sow at this time, okay? What have you put out there to this world? If it hasn't been great stuff, think of it like a boomerang transit, okay? It just echoes right back to us. And so if you have been sort of stuck in childish habits, you've been escaping from your reality, you've been ignoring your Saturnian work, your Saturn return will make you very aware of it. It'll be made aware to you the consequences of the misuse of that time. If you did do something shady, there's a strong propensity that it can come back to bite you. Saturn and Pisces natives, this is not the time to be lying, okay? With Saturn and Pisces, lies can absolutely catch up. And so if you have not been doing your due diligence, Saturn return is when stuff gets real, okay? If you've been kind of just avoiding tomorrow, feeling like it's never gonna come, Saturn return has to be your transition into adulthood, has to be your transition to thinking logically to the end of your life. And I just want to highlight, I know a lot of us are young, okay? Some of you are going through it your second time. And I know it feels like our generation has gone through so many tragedies that it's like, will we even get to old age? But I'll tell you something right now, old age does come, okay? So with Saturn return, it can be this energy of just needing to prepare yourself and just get your visions in alignment for the life that you want to build. And I do want to highlight, it does peak at a certain point. Something that I see talked about very often is individuals thinking that your Saturn return is the entire time that Saturn is transiting the sign Pisces. Absolutely, the themes will begin to come to the surface, but it does not peak until transiting Saturn conjoins natal Saturn. That means if you see that you have Saturn at 1 degree Pisces, a lot of this intensity is going to be concentrated towards 2023. If you see that your Saturn is at 29 degrees, you may not feel this as intensely until the latter part of this transit. This is important to note because when we consider, like there's a lot of people who are celebrating right now who have Saturn at 29 degrees Aquarius. Saturn may not be in Aquarius any longer, but it's still technically forming a conjunction to your Saturn. When we talk about a Saturn return, it's a literal transit. And depending on orb, the measure by which it is concentrated will vary astrologer by astrologer. But I consider when Saturn gets within a 10-degree orb, the themes start really ramping, meeting a inflection point when Saturn conjoins and is at the exact degree of your natal Saturn. So check out that date to understand, but really play it safe the entire time of Saturn transiting Pisces. It's not the time to try to do shady stuff. It's not the time to lie to people. It's not the time to break the law. Navigate your life thinking, what if everybody knew about this? Would I be comfortable doing this, right? And ensure that you are really living in integrity, right? That you are living up, that you are making hard decisions, okay? Saturn return can be very challenging because it's a time that we really have to get disciplined about our energy and where it is being invested. And you may have to make some hard decisions. You really need to decide the person that you want to be and stepping into that firmly and allowing your actions to show where your heart is with Saturn and Pisces. Editing Haley here. Apologize for not saying this when I was filming, but compassion burnout is a real factor during Saturn and Pisces transit overall, and especially for you loves, having natal Saturn and Pisces. Part of your mission here is, yes, to be this vessel for divine compassion to humanity, but to do that, boundaries are deeply important, and it's very important to resist against martyrdom and overgiving at the expense of yourself. Compassion needs limits, givers need limits, and truly, in order to really step up and transition into the next era of your life in the adult that you are meant to be, part of this transition will be any sort of martyr mentality that you're in, savior complex, feeling like you need to save everybody. Like, this is the time to, yes, show up for the human that you want to be, as well as how it is that you want to support humanity, but also know you can only give that if you are giving to yourself. You have finite time and energy. When Saturn in Pisces, there's even a finite energy of our universal compassion, this source energy that is meant to move through us. So it is deeply important during this time to have boundaries. Yes, show up for the causes and the people and what it is that you truly have your heart in, absolutely. But understand, you can only give so much before slipping into some sort of resentful mode, which is important for you to avoid. And know that while the Saturn return can echo into multiple arenas of your life, bringing up themes of commitment, bringing up themes of discipline or lack thereof, bringing up themes of consequences in many arenas of your life, I want you to take a particular look to where it is that you have your natal Saturn placed. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take it Saturn and Pisces through every one of the houses in order to give you more context over some themes that can come to the surface. This will be brief. I do have a deep dive video on Saturn and Pisces that I recommend to really get a hold on what can come to the surface in these different houses, but I want to let you know what it is that essentially Saturn is sliding over an exam on and how it is that you can pass the test that you are essentially embarking upon in this next 2.5 years. So firstly, I just want to talk to you if you have Saturn return in the first house. And if Saturn is returning here, you are most likely a Pisces ascendant. What will come up for review is the you that you've been projecting, and if it is in alignment with your heart, with your soul, with your creativity, with all that is you, right? With Saturn return in your first house, it can be a time that comes up to surface where it is that you have projected a false self in order to feel understood, in order to feel loved. And there's a fusing around what it is that you have projected as well as who it is that you are. There's also a fusing around your higher self and who it is that you are, okay? It's loving and appreciating all that you've been to this point while also loving yourself enough to reach for the higher version of yourself. Other themes, my love, please take diligent care of your body at this time. This could be the first sort of reminder from your body of, okay, I'm not going to be young forever. I'm starting to feel some things hurting. Things that I used to, ways that I used to overextend my body no longer are working. This is the time that you will be asked to be a bit more disciplined about your body as well as about your appearance, okay? Some of you are starting to feel, maybe it's not physicality that you're feeling, maybe you're feeling it in terms of your hair texture is changing, your skin is changing. There's all of these reminders of age and the passage of time, and you're being asked to level up your practices, right? Maybe you need to do some due diligence to find out which shampoo and conditioner genuinely works for you, which makeup strategy generally works for you. When we talk about Saturn, it is about discipline and doing the hard work. So for some of you, you are feeling this energy around transitioning into adulthood and perhaps wanting your hair and makeup to reflect that. For some, maybe it's your aesthetic. You're like, okay, I don't know if the ripped jean look is working these days, right? Maybe there's like a leveling up, wanting to be seen as more classic, as more sleek. But all in all, with Saturn in the first house, like really you're being asked to be more visible, okay? And with the energy of Saturn, definitely being disciplined about continually putting yourself out there. You're being asked to be disciplined about how it is that you see this world as well, okay? When it comes to Saturn in the first house, like ensuring that you are not utilizing, well, pity me, or like martyr-like mentalities of how it is that you view the world. This is not the house of the mind, but it is the sector that has to do with identity. So with Saturn in Pisces, you are being asked to not allow yourself to be viewed as a victim. Of course, things have happened. I completely understand that. And what has happened is not your fault. But essentially, who it is that you want to be going forward is your responsibility. And that is sort of the level up that you are being asked to essentially embark upon while Saturn is returning in your first house. And with Saturn in the first house, you've been very hard on yourself, okay? You see yourself almost through this lens around everything that's wrong with you. And there's this enhanced maturity around understanding these patterns that have played up within your upbringing and really choosing a new way to show up, getting more comfortable around being visible, getting more comfortable around seeing your beauty, getting more comfortable around trusting that other people will see it as well, right? Being able to really look at the world. Yes, you have Saturn in the first house, so I see, you know, you've had to grow up at a very young age. You're very mature, you're very wise, and you've been so at a very young age. But with the energy of Saturn return, it's almost this energy of being able to take that wisdom with you into a new era and not be so harsh on yourself. Like I always joke, I'm like, Saturn first house individuals, you know, they come here with a Roth IRA and a lot of pressure on themselves because whether you put it on yourself or other people put it on you, you are wise beyond your years. And part of Saturn return is sort of observing where it is that you felt restricted as a child and being able to shift into a new paradigm and a new level of being able to have control over your destiny and control over your life as well as control over your perspective. If you are having your Saturn return in Pisces and Saturn is located in the second house of your birth chart, this message is for you. And if Saturn is returning here, you are most likely an Aquarius ascendant. So for you, where it is that you are essentially reaping what it is that you have sown, okay, is around second house themes. So second house is money, second house is values, and second house is self-esteem. So there's a couple different ways this can come to the surface. Firstly, point blank period, you need to look at your bank account. You need to look at where money is going. With Pisces here, some of you might have been a bit of escapist about it, right? Not wanting to deal with it. These numbers aren't real. They can't hurt me. And with Saturn, financial patterns that you have essentially sown, you reap during this time. Now, I know it's a very tense time financially, and I'm not saying it's your fault, but essentially plotting your pathway forward is your responsibility. You may feel called to level up your spending at this time. Saving for retirement. I know it feels like it'll never happen. That day will arrive. You want to ensure that you are saving a penny here and there for a rainy day, okay? And developing some structure or some discipline around allocating towards saving, allocating towards investments to ensure your finances are going in a direction that you would appreciate. Some of you, there is this energy around really reviewing your spending habits, okay? Some of you, maybe it's you're not spending money on the right things. Maybe some of you are overspending. Maybe some of you are undercharging. Maybe some of you are under getting paid. There is a review around money and really with the energy of Saturn return, getting very logical about it, right? So maybe for some of you, it's doing the research and being able to go to your boss and be like, I'm underpaid, or shifting jobs to realize my value is not being reflected reflected by my bank account. My true value, the amount that I give to this world, is not being reflected by how much I'm getting paid. How can I level up this sector of my life? If you're a business owner, some of you are undercharging. You're going to be asked to essentially level up, because when you undercharge, okay, you are undervaluing your essence and your energy, and it's not feasible. Work smarter and not harder during this time. Some of you are being asked to essentially have to deal, and this can be crushing sometimes, have to deal with the weight of how little you have valued yourself at different points in time, okay? Maybe it's even just forgiving yourself for mistakes that you made earlier in your 20s or at a different sector of your life and realizing, wow, I had so little value for myself. Maybe you're currently there where you're just not valuing yourself. You're spending time with people who bring you down. You are giving out your energy willy-nilly, right? And there's just this energy around appreciating the well that you are and all that you have to give this planet, and really coming into alignment with it, right? Really seeing yourself, having clarity over this sector to realize how much it is that you give to this world, and forgiving yourself for ways that you've undersold yourself, undercharged yourself. And sometimes when Saturn's transiting the second house, things get real. Sometimes some of our expenses get more adult-like. Sometimes there are more pressures on us that weren't prior. And I want to share with you something that my mentor shared with me, not my astrology mentor. I have a lot of mentors. I'm very Saturnian, but my finance business mentor, so she teaches like financial courses and programs and things of that nature. And she had me, because when I was going to buy health insurance, I was like, this is so annoying. I just don't want to deal with it. Like, why do we have to pay for this? And keep in mind, especially if you're here in the US like I am, like our health insurance system is so broken. And again, that's not your fault. She shared with me, she was like, listen, it's a broken system, it's horrible, but all you can do is prepare yourself and do what it is that you can at this particular moment. Because, you know, if you keep waiting for the system to change, like you just want to make sure you seize these things before these things seize you. And again, I'm with you. A lot of things that we have to pay for are insanity, right? And with Saturn and Pisces, sometimes even being like, I'm going to school and wait for it to change. I'm going to wait for it to change. That can be a form of escapism. With Saturn and Pisces, think of these new expenses that are popping up as an investment, right? Like, as much as I hate when that freaking health insurance premium comes out of my bank account every single month and then I still have to pay when I go in, like what the heck? This isn't a health house, it's a money house, but that was just a big adulting payment that I hated that reminds me of this energy. But essentially, I just think of that money leaving and just being like, I'm investing in a healthy body. Okay, that's the most priceless thing of all. Maybe there's other arenas of your life that you're being called to invest in. Maybe this is a time that you're being asked to invest in a property. Annoying, but you are investing in something that is time honored. Maybe you've been putting something off. You have to get braces, you have to get a surgery. And with Saturn, it's not the most joyous money that you spend, but it is investment, right? It's things that stand the test of time, and ensuring that where you are putting your money is setting you up for the tomorrow that you want. Even if it's unpleasant, even if it's not glamorous, surgery isn't fun, health insurance isn't fun. These aren't fun expenses, right? And there tends to be an energy with Saturn return second house in which we are reviewing our spending and needing our spending to reflect where our values are, which again, isn't always easy. But if you do value health, that is an investment in your health. If you do value your car, that is investment in your car. And just avoiding that tendency, especially with Saturn and Pisces, to just be like, why me? This is so unfair. Like, it is unfair. Don't get me wrong. I feel you. But essentially, all we can do at this time until a reborn comes, hello, Pluto and Aquarius, speed up. All we can do is do what it is that we can to protect and care for ourselves. And again, just being mindful where it is that you are falling into victim pity mentality. I'm not saying this. I'm saying this because Saturn and Pisces does have a likelihood to do that, right? And it is sort of getting us out of our victim mentality and making us go into action. So again, leveling up, bossing up as it relates to your expenses as well as your income. With Saturn in the second house, a lot of you have been very restricted financially. So for some of you, perhaps it's not, being escapist at all with finances. Maybe it's being able to build that muscle around feeling worthy of investing in yourself, feeling worthy of investing in dentistry as you get older because you never had that growing up. Being able to see the value in yourself and see the value in investing in yourself, transform what felt like a restricted mindset around money and find one that is more expansive, right? And I know it's not easy, it's not going to happen overnight, but really also acknowledging where it is that you have not valued yourself and where that has echoed itself into your finances. If your Saturn return is concentrated in the 3rd house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Capricorn ascendant, or you just have Saturn natally within your 3rd house. Either way, this reading is for you. So what I want you to be mindful of, some themes that can come up, is your communication, and if you are truly communicating as you should be. So some of you, if you've had a lying problem, that is up for review during this time. Or if you have been misusing your words, using your words to manipulate or inflict harm on other people, Saturn return will bring some karma around that. I know that's not you. I know that's not people who listen to my channel, okay, out here bullying people, but just need to highlight, if there have been certain secrets that you've shared or things that you're not proud of that are out there, social media posts that are out there, clean it up, okay? I would definitely delete and just be super mindful of what it is that you post on social media, as well as own up to past lies that you've told or past offensive things that you have said. It's really a time to boss up, do the right thing, even when it's hard, particularly when it relates to what it is that you have shared in the past or continue to share. With Saturn return in the 3rd house, there is a review of your mind and how it is that you talk to yourself truly. With Saturn and Pisces, there is an energy, because again, Saturn return is very much adulting energy. Sorry to be millennial, but Saturn return is very much adulting energy in which we really reap what we've sown, and we really are asked to level up as it relates to our mind. So noticing how it is that you talk to yourself. Do you descend into victim mentality? Why me? I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. Being able to level up starts with your mind, talking to yourself in a gentle and compassionate way. And with Saturn 3rd house, maybe it's just supporting yourself with crafts and books and practices like journaling that support your mind, right? That build a supportive environment from the inside out. It's important to highlight, with Pisces energy, there is a strong ability to create your own reality. And for you, it's starting with your mind. So look at your thoughts, as well as your social media usage could really come up to the surface during this time. Some of you could be questioning the role that social media plays within your life, as well as dialing it in to make it as effective as possible. Maybe some of you need that discipline of Saturn 3rd house to consistently show up, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't want to be perceived. Maybe you have to do it to promote your art or your business or something of that nature, and you're being asked to show up whether you feel like it or not. Other arenas of your life that could come up is just reviewing of your relationship to your siblings, as well as a review of neighborhood themes within your life. But all in all, when it comes to Saturn return, some of you may pivot or start learning a new certification or something of that nature, learning something new that sets you up for the future. So this can be a time in which you invest in new classes and certifications in order to get yourself into alignment with where it is that you want to go. And maybe some of them are lengthy, right, programs. But with the energy of Saturn, it's really being able to do the work and have discipline in order to mentally get us to where it is that we want to go. And you have natal Saturn in the 3rd house. So I see that it has not been easy for you to speak up. And part of Saturn return in the 3rd house is being able to work that muscle around how much are you speaking your truth. Some of you are quite shy. Some of you could have had challenges with learning or with traditional early education. And with Saturn return, it's like, how have you worked through these challenges? How have you worked through that tendency to not want to speak up, right? To not want yourself to be perceived? That's why I do feel, especially with the energy in Pisces, some of you definitely could have had a lying problem because you felt like your own self didn't deserve to be heard, or you wanted to have something interesting to say, and that can absolutely come up for review, and allowing yourself to be seen vulnerably and to really feel in accordance with what it is that you feel called to share. And this will only be a message for a couple people, but with Saturn returning in your 3rd, some of you can be having to have hard conversations, particularly with a sibling or with an extended family member. Maybe there's someone that you feel that you always have to save. Again, Saturn in Pisces is reminding us, as cliche as it is, we have to put on our own oxygen mask before putting on anybody else's, okay? And you need to save yourself first. This is the time in which any sort of compassion burnout that you've been undergoing is no longer sustainable. You might be like, well, but it's Cousin Becky. I always do it for Cousin Becky. Relationship with family does need boundaries as well, right? And 4th house is technically family as well, but 3rd house is essentially siblings, cousins, it's family member, things of that nature. So perhaps some of you are dealing with some boundaries there. If your Saturn return is concentrated within the 4th house of your astrological natal chart, You may potentially be a Sagittarius ascendant, but you may not be. You may just have Saturn in the 4th house. Either way, this Saturn return reading is for you. So there is a huge focus on your home environment, and things can get real here. If you're in a home environment that is not built to last, Saturn will make that very apparent. Rent will be raised, or your roommates will not want to re-sign, or your job will take you somewhere else. Essentially, it's a make or break time as it relates to your residence. And when it relates to Saturn return in the 4th house, it also sort of brings to the surface how it is that you've been maintaining and running your home, right? If you've been having boundaries as it relates to your roommates or even your landlords and things of that nature can all come up for review at this time. Other focus is on family. It's on roots, it's on ancestry. And I want to highlight here what I did prior as well, which is that what's happened to you is not your fault, but with Saturn return, it is your responsibility around how it is that you want to proceed. With Saturn return, there is a review, there is an eye towards your childhood, right? Your upbringing, your roots, your family relationships. And with Saturn return, it could be heavy at times. Sometimes family stuff can bring it to the surface, or just the process of adulting, getting older is really making these themes, which used to feel so far away and so distant, very, very real around what are the traditions that I'm so proud to take with me from my upbringing itself, and which am I so determined to stop, or it stops here. I no longer want to take that with me. Some of you can be really contemplating if you want to essentially have a family, right? And what legacy you want to leave as it relates to your family. Some of you can have some harsh decisions that you need to make as it relates to family, whether or not you want to have them within your life, whether or not you feel your compassion is being taken advantage of. And of course, I do talk about Saturn and Pisces in the 4th house within the Saturn Pisces video, but particularly for the return, there's this energy around, are you creating a home for your being? How safe is the home of your being? Okay, how are you taking care of your emotions and every part of yourself? Because I know with Saturn in the 4th house, things have not always been easy in order to build a safe environment, in order to build an environment that you feel, secure to be your own self around. You can also feel that you are restricted emotionally. So truly, if you have worked through those emotional blocks, this is a time of being able to level up and approach your emotions with this heightened degree of maturity, right? And being able to pass into this rite of passage around certainly certain things from your upbringing will still sting. They still make you the person that you are, but there is this new maturity over it. So definitely lean on techniques such as whatever it looks like for you, therapy or boundaries or things that you need in order to protect the soul and the person that you are. If you will have your Saturn return in Pisces in your astrological natal chart concentrated within your 5th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Scorpio ascendant, or you just have your natal Saturn in Pisces located within the 5th house. Either way, this message is for you. Do keep in mind, make sure to listen to the general reading and not just this part, because these are just little bits. I do go in depth around what it means for Saturn transiting each house in the Saturn and Pisces all signs video, but in this I really wanted to give a lens towards what it means to have your Saturn returning in these sectors. So you have Saturn, natal Saturn in the 5th house. 5th house governing creativity, self-expression. And when you have natal Saturn within your 5th house, you kind of have to work on your play in that it's not always easy for you. There can be something that does feel interrupted in regards to your inner child, whether you had to grow up really fast, be very mature, whether you're somebody who has a tendency to monetize everything that you like or turn something that you like into something that you obsess about and need to be the best in. That is coming up for review. It is coming up for review new ways of having fun, new ways of enjoying yourself. For some of you, you will be asked to cut back on partying during this time. There will start to be consequences of your partying at this time for sure. And there can be energy around choosing whether or not you want to take drinking with you into the next era of your life. And your hobbies could change. I feel for some of you, there could be energy around you work so much and there's almost an energy around, well, what do I do with my free time? Do I have anything for free time? Do I do anything just for myself? And with Saturn, it can and your Saturn return, it can be a time of working that muscle around doing things intentionally for your inner child, doing things intentionally to have fun. Some of you with Saturn in the 5th house, perhaps you felt a bit restricted from having children. Maybe you weren't sure. Maybe it's something that you've wanted, but you've had some challenges around it. With your Saturn return in this sector, it can be a time of reviewing the topic of children and if whether or not you want to have children. Now, if you have children with your Saturn return, it's really you're gonna start to see how it is that you are raising them, okay? Nothing scary at all, but with Saturn return, it can be a little bit more challenging. You can really be a witness to time, right? And time is a thief, right? It steals all these moments from us. And with Saturn return, the process of parenting can really get real for you, right? And some of you are very creative. I feel that for a lot of Saturn and Pisces generation, you all are literally meant to take visions and turn them into something real. But for you, if you have not been doing the work to work that muscle, to show up for your creativity daily, this is the time to do so. Like that painting that you were meant to make is not just gonna fall down off the sky. You have to show up. Whether Muse is there or not, you have to show up. You have to do the work to be a loyal steward for Muse and for creativity, right? It's not always just writing when you feel inspired. You need to bake it into your day. You need to bake it into your life. You need to have discipline. I know people feel differently on that as it relates to creativity, but I feel strongly with your Saturn return within the 5th house, you have to work that muscle. Some of you I know with Saturn in the 5th house, you feel blocked creatively. Like you feel like it's not safe to share what it is that you want to share. Some of you, you're like, who would even want to hear my poem or what have you? Show up, okay? Work through that energy of limitation. Work through that energy of feeling restricted. Allow yourself to show up because like I said, this is strongly related with inner child because it's how it is that we express ourselves. And with Saturn in 5th house, you can feel like it's not safe to express yourself. And I just want you to know you have something within you that is unique. You are your own unique light and that shines out through your creativity. And part of this is about unlearning whatever within you made you feel like it was not safe to share who it is that you are or to create freely. It's really about unlearning and showing up regardless, even with the restrictions, even with the feeling of scarcity around it. And some of you do feel awkward or restricted as it relates to dating and relationships, and that will come up for review during this time. Whether or not you're putting yourself out there for romance, whether or not you're using your time wisely as it relates to romance. I've shared this before. It wasn't my Saturn return, but I did meet a very significant partner when Saturn entered my 5th house because 5th house is dating and romance, right? And with Saturn, it's like it took me off the market. So either with Saturn 5th house, you're getting serious about how it is that you allocate your dating, like your dating strategy, right? Or you could find you're less inclined to date, really wanting to commit yourself to the right person. There can definitely be a review about your relationships, not just currently, but up to this point, right? And particularly with the eye towards dating, romance, the more lighthearted parts of relationships, as well as if you have not been exerting good health, reproductive health, that can also come up for a review. So definitely a time to be deeply, deeply mindful about those arenas. Safe is the best, okay? If your Saturn return will happen in your 6th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Libra rising, or you just have natal Saturn in Pisces within your 6th house. Either way, these are some thoughts that you should keep in mind. Do keep in mind, I do a deeper dive in my Saturn and Pisces all sign video, as well as go into more depth on what Saturn return to bring the surface earlier in the video. I know a lot of people skip past that part, but I deeply recommend getting well versed in those parts because I do go more in depth with information that you need to know. However, here's some thoughts to keep in mind, particularly through the lens that Saturn will be returning in the 6th. You're a busy bee and not all of it is serving you. Straight up. Straight up. It's not serving you. This is the sort of individual where it's like every time you have an hour free, tasks well to accommodate it. You do feel strongly and you are here to be of service, right? With Saturn 6th house. But to really be of service, you need to show up for yourself just as you do everything else. And with Saturn 6th house, you are being asked to really take a critical eye to your time management and really look where your time is being spent and what is serving you. Some of you are going to walk away from certain projects or obligations that are just draining more energy than they are giving. Okay, some of you, if you're someone who says yes to every opportunity with Saturn in 6th house, it's just this energy around my time is finite. And I need to ensure I'm giving it towards, if it's work, the most profitable sectors, right? If it's when it relates to my health, to what makes me feel the best. And with Saturn in the 6th house, it will put some pressure on your day-to-day. You will feel like you're fist-fighting time. And that's sort of how your natal chart operates. But you are going to realize during this transit that being busy all the time is not a reflection of your worth. It is not a reflection of your value. It's actually, you know, coming from somebody who also has Saturn in the 6th house, I just want to let you know, when your schedule is totally full and you're overwhelmed all the time, that's actually a sign that you're really not allocating your time well. Okay, I'm so sorry. Saturn is dispelling harsh truth here, but seriously, like really some of you need to unlearn feeling that your worth is tied up to how busy you are. Some of you need to unlearn wherever it is that you have this martyr mentality around, I do everything for everybody and nobody ever does anything for me, right? Like self-undoing shows up in micro ways, like saying yes when you want to say no. And you need to be more disciplined about what it is that you give your time to. The most successful people are so cognizant not to just say yes to every single meeting and every single thing because they understand how valuable their time is. And that is what you are stepping into. And I really mean stepping into, because with Saturn, it's like stepping into extra discipline. It's stepping into looking at your schedule with a more critical eye around what is really helpful for the big picture of what's important to your soul with the energy in Pisces, of what it is that you feel called to be of service of, and what is just distracting you from that. Health gets real here. And again, I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not trying to put any fear within you, okay? But I do want to say, with Saturn return, certain tendencies that we had no longer fly. Like you might have earlier in your 20s been able to eat hot Cheetos and orange juice. Ew, weird combo, but you might have been able to eat that every single day. I mean, I guess orange juice isn't that bad, but you get what I mean. Eat a bunch of processed food, drink all the coffee, do all the things for your health. And that might have worked during other parts of your journey, but you're going to realize what is no longer helping you as you move into adulthood, what your body no longer resonates with. I will say with Saturn return, you could develop new sensitivities. You could develop new health stuff. Again, no fear, but I just want you to be so disciplined. If you do notice something, please go get it checked out, okay? For some of you, it's just literally having to confront your fear about going to the doctor, going to the dentist, and having discipline over ensuring that you are taking care of yourself in every single sector of your life. And some of you are having to confront where it is that you have the I do it issue, where you just take on everything, you do everything. Some of you are being asked to outsource during this time, to hire perhaps for the first time. Maybe it's outsourcing certain errands and activities, right? Like understand, look at your schedule. What is swallowing up time and how can your time be used more wisely? If Saturn will return within the 7th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Virgo ascendant. You may not be. You may just have natal Saturn in Pisces in your 7th house. Either way, this reading is for you. And do keep in mind, for a deeper dive into Saturn transiting the 7th house, you'll want to check out my Saturn Pisces all signs reading. So when it relates to what it is that you're being tested on from Professor Saturn, your relationships are taking center stage. So if you are single going into this transit, I won't lie to you, it can be a time you do feel more pessimistic about your relationships. However, this is your official, essentially, entrance into 2 thumbs up, you're allowed to get married. Again, I don't think we could do life wrong, but I will say in the traditional text, they always talk about Saturn return in the 7th house and say that typically it's best for them to get married after Saturn returns in the 7th house, because they don't know until that Saturn returns in the 7th house what it is they truly want within a partner. So, if you are single, officially you are allowed to get married. Allowed. You don't need my permission. But essentially, this is a time in which you are thinking more long-term as it relates to your relationship. You are really thinking long-term around what sort of person do I really want to be with? And what sort of person do I not want to be with? And getting very clear about that. There can be energy in which you used to entertain people, you used to go on dates and whatever, and there's this energy around no more. I want my life partner. I want commitment. I want all of these things, and I'm not going to entertain people who aren't in alignment towards my vision and where I want to go. You're not in the mood to date just for the game of it, just for the sport of it. You really want to ensure you're allocating your time towards building the relationship and the partnership that you really want. That being said, you can feel more blocked as it relates to love. You have Saturn in 7th house. You do kind of view these things a little bit more pessimistically, but you do commit. When you commit fully. I think Saturn actually in the 7th house is a great position for Saturn. Honestly, like Saturn exalts in Libra, the sign of relationship. 7th house has to do with relation. I think these people really aren't lukewarm in that they really do commit when they do commit. And with your Saturn return in 7th house, it's just around getting clear on the person that you'd like to commit to and kind of revisiting everything that has brought you to this point. And it can feel heavy. You can be feeling a little bit more pessimistic, but all I want to say with Saturn is that keep your standards high. Some of you might be dating people, and I do want to say, so if you're in a relationship, I'm not saying it's going to fall apart, okay? What I will say is it will be tested. It will be tested within your relationship. If you have trust issues, it'll be tested with Saturn and Pisces. If you are trying to save somebody, you cannot save anybody within this world. If you're trying to hope that somebody will change, this transit will make it very clear this person's not going to change. Before you walk down the aisle, make sure you know who it is that you're marrying, because a lot of you have Pisces descendants, so you see what it is that you want to see. And Saturn and Pisces, you know, the rose-colored glasses are coming off, and you want to make sure you will get clarity. If you are not married, you will get clarity during this time whether or not the person that you're with now is who you want to marry. Straight up. You will either leave this time being like, yes, I'm so sure about you, we are in alignment, or the relationship will fall apart. I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality of Saturn return. And when it relates to getting through this transit, you guys will be on a really solid foundation, but you have to work at it and you have to really strive to have clarity with it. Some of you definitely with Saturn return, 7th house has to do with contracts. So if you did sign faulty contracts, those could come back to haunt you. So definitely important time to be mindful, as well as things like business partners and things of that nature can absolutely come up for review at this time. So if your Saturn return is concentrated in your 8th house in the sign Pisces, you may potentially be a Leo rising, but you may not be. You may just have Saturn Pisces in your 8th house, but either way, this reading is for you. So what is being reviewed during this time is essentially that you are going to no longer be on this planet one day. Like literally with Saturn return in the 8th house, it gets very real. It gets very real in regards to that we are going to not be here one day, and that can depress you or that can enliven you. That can make you want to live even more, seize out every moment, or it can just make you want to hide away. Choose to seize the moment. Now, sometimes with Saturn return in the 8th house, there can be loss that you're grappling with. I'm not putting that out there. I'm not trying to scare you. I don't want your mind to freak out, think out who it could possibly be. It's not necessarily always like a pivotal loss within our life. It could just get real that, you know, people are getting older. Age is really setting in. We're not going to be here forever. And there's really a desire to live while it is that you are alive, right? And with Saturn return in the 8th house, there can absolutely be a review of intimacy, how safe you feel within your connections to just merge. You might have some control issues, right? You really want to cling to things and control things. Your Saturn return in 8th house will reveal to you how much that has been maybe a coping mechanism, or how much you've tried to control things and it just falls through your hands like quicksand, and how it is that you are working that muscle to feel safe to just surrender. With Saturn in 8th house, joint finances can come up for review. So there can be certain factors that are bringing to the surface your money within your marriage or something of that nature. Any sort of stream of income that money is making its way to you, there can be a review. And you have natally Saturn here, which can signify somebody who does feel a bit restricted in these matters. So with Saturn return in the 8th house, it can bring to the surface certain trust issues, whether it relates to physically merging with someone, financially merging with somebody, whether it's your spouse or a business partner. There's just this energy around being in this trust fall with the universe. And with Saturn in the 8th house, working that muscle around continually showing up even towards the unknown. Some of you, if you're interested in the occult or something of that matter, you could be really called to start showing up in that arena, start putting all your studying into practice in a more real way, right? Can absolutely be themes as it relates to this transit. As well as just understanding, I have a finite amount of time on this planet. I need to start showing up for my life's work. So if your Saturn return is concentrated into your 9th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Cancer rising, but you may not be. You may just have natal Saturn and Pisces within your 9th house. Either way, this reading is for you. And I want to remind you that I do go more into depth in my Saturn Pisces all signs video, but I wanted to, in this video, just give a lens in terms of how Saturn return in the 9th house can manifest. Firstly, within your natal chart, this can signify somebody who feels blocked blocked as it relates to your own spirituality, as it relates to your own intuition. Maybe you default to other readers rather than listening to the wisdom that you know is within you. Some of you might have religious experiences that made you kind of like mad at God or not trust the divine, right? And when it relates to Saturn return in 9th house, it is this energy to put into practice the spiritual beliefs that you have. So if you do have any spiritual practices that are ungrounded, this is sort of a time to ground them. And what I mean by that is that some of you may feel called to go into deep study around really wanting to understand these topics rather than just pop astrology or anything of that nature that you see on TikTok. There is a desire to really live in accordance to what it is that you believe in. Some of you will be going back to school. Maybe with Saturn in the 9th house, there was a delayed experience that prolonged you getting your degree or something of that nature, and that is the call as it relates to the Saturn return. Some of you, there may be fears around traveling that are up for review during this time, and really as it relates to big picture, trust in the universe. With Saturn in Pisces particularly, there could have been certain hindrances within your journey around feeling like you needed to be in control of your universe, that it was not safe for you to trust something bigger than yourself. And with the Saturn return, it can be quite humbling to realize, okay, universe, you know better than I do. And some of you are being asked to sort of allow yourself to feel held, even in the challenging moments, understanding there is a bigger plan, I am in alignment with it, and finding ways that you are taking yourself out of your comfort zone in the pursuit of wisdom, right? Whether that is traveling, seriously with Saturn return in the 9th house, some of you could be conquering a fear around traveling or traveling solo or something of that nature. Some of you can be called to get a degree, to, walk the path of someone who is a seeker, wanting to accumulate deep wisdom, not just knowledge, wisdom. And you have to be able to be a student of the universe, be teachable, right? To go on this journey for wisdom. That is essentially the role that you are stepping into at this time. And when it relates to Saturn in the 9th house, it's not always as easy as just meditating and seeing all these things. Sometimes it's working that muscle around building these spiritual practices into your daily routine. Sometimes it's needing to go into deep study. Maybe it's going into a dark night of the soul or something in nature that tests you. With Saturn and Pisces, there is this focal point around really living out our spirituality, living out our compassions, allowing our actions to do the talking. Because while Saturn in the 9th house can sort of limit these arenas, with Saturn returning here, there is this energy around, okay, what has been your life experience up to this point around your spirituality, around your intuition, around your religion? And how are we going to get into alignment with what genuinely serves our worldview moving forward? So maybe for some of you, it's being able to find during this time a new religion that really aligns with you, or a new spirituality, or new habits that support your faith in this world. So if you have your Saturn returning in the 10th house of your astrological natal chart, you may potentially be a Gemini ascendant, but not always. So make sure to listen to the reading of wherever you have your Saturn return, whichever house you're having your Saturn return in. And a quick note that I do go more into depth on a house by house analysis within my Saturn and Pisces video that you'll want to check out as well. So since you have natal Saturn in Pisces, there is something as it relates to career that could have taken some time for you to fully step into. There could have been delays, right? As it relates to it, there could have been a feeling of restriction around how could I, or why bother? Or maybe it's just the standards you put on yourself, or standards that were put on you by a father figure, right? Regardless, as it relates to how it is that you show up career, you aren't somebody who just shows up halfway. Like, you put a lot of what it is that you are meant to do. And the gift of having Saturn in the 10th house is that you do have longevity as it relates to your legacy. People who have Saturn in the 10th house do have staying power. Now, you are being tested at this time if you are in the right field. If you are in the right field, you will leave this time being a resource in your industry, a leader in your industry, someone that other people look to and learn from, right? It will really crystallize and solidify what it is that you are doing. What's important for you to know is that this is not the time to cut corners. This is not the time to take the easy way out. Make every decision with your business and career as though everybody will find out about it, because the way Saturn works, everybody may, and you need to have integrity with what it is that you are doing. With Saturn return, I know a lot of you might be like, well, I haven't found my life's work. You will know it. By the end of your Saturn return, you will know it, and you need to show up for it. Your life's work is not something that you sit down every single day and feel inspired. It sucks sometimes. It will challenge you and contort you into brand new ways. It's not always inspired, right? And with the energy of Saturn, it's having that discipline to show up for how it is that you are meant to guide and to lead and to empower. Some of you, your leaderships are coming up for review at this time, because this is a really critical time when it relates to your reputation. So I would not do anything halfway. I would not do anything shady. This is a time to show up and to show up completely and assure and make sure that your actions line up with the vision that you have for your career, right? If you have your own business with Saturn in Pisces, I do feel a lot of you are spiritual leaders, okay? And it's ensuring that your own personal spirituality is still being honored as it relates to how it is that you show up for your business. Some of you, I do feel you do bring a lens of compassion with you into your public persona, and compassion has to have limits. Saturn in Pisces, this will be a time of compassion burnout if you have not been allocating your time properly, if you have not put into the pathway the processes that you need as a soul to run your business. To show up for your life's work, to show up for career, you need to make sure you're showing up for yourself first. I know this seems really dark, and perhaps it is, but I've always cared about what it is that I do more than I've cared about myself. And it's been like a backdoor way of tricking myself to take care of myself, as I'm like, okay, for me to show up as a vessel, as a teacher, as whatever, I need to take care of myself, because that in turn will allow me to lead, guide more effectively. I know that's a little dark, and trust me, I'm working on it. But I want to highlight for you, if you value what it is that you do beyond just what it is that you are, this is the time to really put into place sustainable business practices. Burning yourself out is not sustainable. Taking on every single client and giving so much of yourself to every single person is not sustainable. You need to step into essentially your business person glasses around how am I allocating my time and energy, and how am I overgiving? How am I giving towards others at my own expense? And that needs to stop now. If your Saturn return will be in your 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Taurus ascendant. You potentially may not be. You may just have your natal Saturn within your 11th house. Regardless, this reading is for you. So what is coming up to the surface is your friends at this time. And for some of you who have Saturn in the 11th house, there could have been certain blockages or certain challenges associated with you finding that group of people that felt like soul family, right? With the energy in Pisces. It could have been something that you really had to work on. This will be a time, essentially, congratulations from Saturn if you've been doing the work to really build in resonant groups of individuals who really honor and see and celebrate your light. But it can be a time in which friendships that are not built to last do fall away. Like, certain friends are with us for only certain eras of our life, and that is okay. Like, with the friendships that can come for review during this time, or friendships that could fall away, are perhaps people who are not in alignment with where it is that you are going for your future. And you can let them go with grace and with gratitude, appreciating the role that the friendship played within your journey, as well as just being open to new individuals who do feel resonant with your soul, right? Like with Saturn in the 11th house, it truly is about quality for you rather than quantity. So I don't want you to stress if there are certain friendships that you're trying to force into existence. It's like, I want to be friends with this person, but all we do is party. It's like allowing yourself to understand when it relates to your hopes and dreams, which are also up for review. You want to ensure that you are around people who see your light, celebrate your light, and honor not just the version of yourself now, but where it is that you are going. I highlight hopes and dreams because 11th house is the future. So with Saturn returning in the 11th house, a lot of you are having to get real about your dreams, which are going to come to fruition and which aren't. Letting go of the ones that aren't and being able to really step into the ones that are. Now, it's not to say it's necessarily make or break, but it is a time to get real about what it is that you really see as it relates to your future, the future that you want for yourself. As well as some of you could just be getting real around the amount of time that we have on this planet and really wanting to show up for the humanitarian causes that do mean the most to you. If friendships have been a problem for you, you felt awkward, you felt restricted, you felt blocked, there's been challenging circumstances in friendships, absolutely. With Saturn 11th house, wherever Saturn's placed, it's not a sector of our life that just flows, right? We do have to work on it. And so for you, if you're like, Haley, Comet, I would love to have friends, I don't really have friends, this is about putting in the muscle to be able to find those individuals, it is not always seamless. We tend to think of friendship as something that just happens, so that falls down from the sky. But particularly in adulthood, we have to work the muscle. Like, we used to just make friends because we were at the playground. It was all about proximity. In adulthood, we're not necessarily in close proximity with people around our age any longer. So with Saturn in the 11th house, maybe it's joining networking groups. Maybe it's reviewing why it is that you don't feel comfortable in group environments. Maybe it's putting yourself into the pathway to connect with different like-minded individuals, things of that nature. You are somebody who wants to lead or to teach or to guide many people. With Saturn returning in the 11th house, you could be putting in some work towards calling in those aligned audiences, maybe putting more effort towards social media marketing, towards different vehicles of how you will get your essence, your work out there. And I will say, you will be tested at this time as it relates to your boundaries. If you have friendships that you feel that you need to continually save, it'll come into focus around ways that you are not appreciating yourself enough to have boundaries. You cannot save other people. You can only hurt yourself trying, okay? So with Saturn 11th house, you do need to be a little bit more rigid in regards to boundaries around if you have someone who's constantly calling you middle of the night, can you come get me? Can you come get me? Sometimes compassion means saying no. Sometimes compassion means having boundaries. I will say, I feel, this will only be a message for a couple people, but I feel for some of you, you're having to really set down the law, whether it's no longer partying with your friends, maybe one of your friends is dealing with a substance issue of some sort. But again, with things are getting real in relation to friendships. And as you grow up, your friendships need to as well. And that means making hard decisions and having hard conversations. If your Saturn return is concentrated within the 12th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be an Aries ascendant, but not always. So make sure to listen to the reading of wherever you have your natal Saturn in Pisces located within. And I do want to say I go into much more depth in my Saturn in Pisces all signs video, but I wanted to give a lens around some natal themes that can come to the surface here. So I will let you know your Saturn is rejoicing in the 12th, okay? Saturn does enjoy being in the 12th house. However, you are battling demons during this time, okay? Some of you need to get sober, point blank period. You need to stop running from things. You need to stop numbing your emotions. You need to stop turning to substances. Boundaries, cut them out, see how you feel in 1 month, 2 months, see if you are feeling really tempted, right? If you are setting up rules for yourself, like that can signify an addiction. And in our society makes drinking and things of that nature so normalized, like it is a poison at the end of the day, and it's a poison at the end of the day. And really investigating your relationship with it. Maybe you're dabbling in other substances, maybe you're on a medication that you are overdoing. Like, obviously, talk to a doctor before cutting out any medications. I don't mean it like that, but this is the energy to really review their role within your life and be disciplined. Like if a medication is not serving you, be disciplined about meeting with doctors in order to find one that does, right? With, things that are not necessarily pharmaceuticals, drinking and things of that nature. Seriously, this is the time. Take a little break. See how you feel. See how hard it is for you. These things are so baked into society that it can feel bizarre. Like you can find socially you don't feel the same. Like even emotionally you can find, am I running from things? Am I using it to avoid my emotions? I didn't even realize I was. Why is all this stuff coming to the surface? Some of you with Saturn in the 12th house, I don't know, this will only be a message for a couple people, but if you've been smoking a lot and not dreaming, with Saturn returning in the 12th house, it can be really coming to the surface around those dreams and maybe even emotions that you've been avoiding. With Saturn returning, you are having to confront that you are alone. That is not scary. You are the best fit for navigating your soul. But with Saturn return, it can be a lonely, isolating time. It can be a time that makes it very clear that you are the best advocate for you, that you need to take care of yourself from the inside out. And for some of you, it's really about like subconscious processing. Like seriously, with Saturn in the 12th house, you have a very tough internal script. You're hard on yourself. And with your Saturn return, it can be coming to the surface. All of the opportunities that you've talked yourself out of because you didn't feel like you're capable of, or even just an underlying manuscript around you are not enough, you are not enough. With Saturn returning, it's time to take the reins, okay? And really support yourself with the tools in order to really reprogram your subconscious mind. I know, no easy feat, right? But whether it's like subliminals, or I think EMDR is something, maybe traditional therapy, look at these modalities and how it supports your mental health, okay? Because for some of you, if you've already taken control of this with Saturn return, it's sort of like a graduation period, or you can really find that you're starting to see results from the work that you've done on your internal mind. But for some of you, if you've been avoiding it, it's sort of a tough wake-up call around, okay, we need to get real. We need to really take care of ourselves from the inside out. Some of you need to have more discipline over your connection with the other side. With Saturn in the 12th house, maybe you don't trust in your intuition. Perhaps some of you feel blocked in regards to it. Maybe some of you are so open of a channel that it's hard to control your connection to the other side. Either way, boundaries is important at this time to really learn and master this tool, master this connection with the other side. So maybe it's leaning upon programs and guides and mentors who can help you chisel the connection that you have. Maybe if you're striving to connect more, seeking out resources in order to open that connection. But there is a focus on your spiritual connection, essentially. So my loves, I know Saturn return is quite daunting, but I want you to know we've got this, okay? This is a time, it's a rite of passage, and striving to go into it with an open mind, open heart to the wisdom that Saturn will dispel, the lessons that we will learn, this essentially trip down memory lane of all of these experiences that have made us the person that we are, and essentially reaping what it is that we have sown in our first, 28, 29 years of our life. For some of you who are in your second Saturn return, reaping what it is that you've sown for the about 60 or so years of your life. It is a time of deep clarity around what it is that you're committed to and what it is that you are not, what it is in your life that stands the test of time, what it is that you not, where it is that you have done the work and where it is that you have not, and essentially stepping into this brand new era. And for many of you, your most embodied, actualized version of yourself yet. I know Saturn return gets demonized. I promise to you, if you are doing the work, if you are on the right pathway, you will be up-leveled essentially to a brand new paradigm, and I'll be cosmically cheerleading you every step of the way. So my loves, my Instagram handle is @Haley Astrology. My TikTok is the same. I would love to connect with you over there. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.